After 3 years of interruptions and format changes due to the pandemic, we return to normal proceedings. We'll be crowning the champion of Europe at the Interclassics Maastricht in January in just over a month's time. But first of all, we need to find out who's going to qualify for that event. It's the quarterfinals tonight. And of course, we don't go racing around the streets in the Netherlands, but we go to the desert dunes in Bahrain, and we can't wait to see what is going to happen. It is time for Sim Formula Europe 2024, powered by Nextfuse. Myself, Cameron Rodger, Zach Sweeney alongside me with Ruben Cravers doing the production behind the scenes. And Zach, we're looking forward to this one. It's going to be certainly an interesting couple of rounds before we get to the final in January.
Yeah, of course. We've got 3 races tonight, and then in a week's time we'll do the semi-finals, and then we get to enjoy the finals in Maastricht in January. That's going to be a really good way to kick off the new year. Of course, these guys, the 60 drivers that are going to be taking part tonight, have fought really hard to get here, putting in their best lap times, and we've got some of our Factor 2's best taken to the circuit today.
Yeah, we certainly do. And straight into the action, into the qualifying session, because there's only 2 minutes to go. So we get slightly into the format during the warm-up sessions. Let's just see how this qualifying ends. There are 3 races, so there's 3 individual ones. But for this first race today, it looks like there'll be Colin Spork out towards the front, just by 21 thousandths of a second. But Thibaut Casbon, he's coming for him very close. Of course, we are not on the Bahrain Grand Prix circuit, but we are on the Bahrain Outer circuit. So this is the sort of the loop that we saw for the Sakir Grand Prix back in 2020. We don't have that whole infield section. It's going to be fast, Zach, with these 3 straights. The lap times are going to be so close.
Yeah, of course, with there being less corners, there's less opportunity to make up that lap time. A lot of it is spent flat out. So, yeah, in theory, we should have some really close times. And of course, when we get to the races, a lot of dependence on slipstream, hoping for maybe an oval-esque race. We were talking, of course, as Michi Hoyer takes to the top step of the timesheets as it stands, just over half a cent quicker than Colin Spork there in P2. And as we expected, very close lap times. But you're talking, we're expecting some sort of oval-style racing here thanks to the straights.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it's not the loads of slipstream that you see a bit later in this car, but it should be enough that we get, sort of trains being formed up. The good thing, though, is that we have these hard break-ins, especially into turn 1 here, as we see Stan Vlietstra coming through this turn 1, 2, 3 sequence of corners. But then we get another hard braking zone up into turn 4, and then again into the final corner. And the brakes are very tricky in this car, so it's not going to be easy by any means. As we see Stan here coming up towards turn 4, very tricky corner because it opens up this middle sector that is so tricky. You've got this sort of fast, flat-out left-hander, but then this right-hander is so difficult. But you've got to keep it to the right-hand side, a little bit unusual because you have to open up this chicane and try and get the run onto the back straight, which is already coming up towards the final corner. As you see, just over 70 seconds around this lap as Vlietstra backs out of that one. Half a minute to go, and we've got half a tenth covering the top 5.
Oh, what more could we really ask for? This is absolutely insane. Right towards the dying stages of this session, Gianmarco Fiducci about to cross the line. Let's see what he can do. Maybe going to be able to get himself onto the front 2 rows of the field. Maybe going for pole position, potentially across the line. It's ahead of Stan Vlietstra and up into 4. Very nicely done indeed. He can work with that.
Certainly can. As the qualifying session comes to the end, Michi Hoyer, the only driver getting into the 1-minute 10s, and so that is certainly quite an interesting factor. So we'll go into a bit of a warm-up session for these drivers, and we'll let you know a little bit about obviously the format for this season of racing. As I said, we start with the quarterfinals tonight. So there's going to be 3 races, all of 20 minutes. So there has been 2 other servers having their qualifying sessions right now as well. And of course, we'll go into the races one by one. So we start with server 1. How have they got to this stage? Well, there was a hot lap competition. It was open for about a week. They could set their fastest lap times, and the top 60 have now been split into 3 races of 20 that we are going to see today. And it's pretty simple. You get inside the top half of your split, inside the top 10, and that'll qualify you for the semi-finals next week. So Zach, the only thing that these drivers really need to focus on is that top 10. If you're in the top 3 or so, you don't really need to battle. Winning doesn't really make a difference, but yeah, it's just getting inside that semi-final positions.
Right, yeah, I mean, it's great to win, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not going to hurt. It sort of stakes a claim, and it sort of proves how good you are. But if you're fighting at the front and it's a 50-50 move, why take it? You're not going to gain anything. First or second, you're still going to be through into next week. The most important thing that you can do is get yourself into that top 10. And that's why I think sort of that fight, 10th, 11th, 12th, is going to be very feisty indeed, because those guys are going to be, fighting a lot more, because those positions mean a lot more to them. And there might only be a car length, maybe even less, across the line between 10th and 11th. But, well, in the grand scheme of things, that half a car length is quite a defining amount of distance.
Yeah, so it's going to be a big task for some of these drivers. As we say, top 10 go through to the semi-finals, which is going to happen next week. Same time, same place. Thursday next week, we'll be going racing once more. That'll be on the 21st of December, where the top 30 drivers from today will play out for the final 7 spots. So we're going 20 to today, but next week is 30 to 7, and they'll be at the Nürburgring circuit. So the schedule is looking very good for this season. Of course, we're here at Bahrain tonight, but then we go to the Nürburgring before getting to the streets of Maastricht in January. What are they playing for? Well, the 2024 prizes look like this. Pretty much similar to what we've seen over the last couple of seasons, which is very nice. €10,000 prize pool. And of course, that is split up by 3,000 going to the winner and then going down to 750 for the final 4 positions. So, Zach, even if you don't win the competition in Maastricht, you still get 750. You get obviously money to get yourself there, get hotels and everything. So you might as well have a go, see if you can get yourself into that top 8 and see what is going to happen, because that's some nice prizes right there.
I was going to say, I mean, just for finishing last in the competition, getting €750 is not half bad. I definitely take that. Unfortunately, I definitely don't have the skill as to amount to these drivers. These are, some of our Factor 2's best, and we are only going to be able to funnel them down, of course, as you can see, down to the 7 that we eventually get to, of course, the 8 that qualify for the prizes. That is a big and a very, very tight funnel to whittle these guys down into, which is going to be absolutely insane. There you can see the tracks: Bahrain, Nürburgring, and then of course Maastricht, which we took to pretty much every year that Synform has been on, of course. But yeah, just in general, I mean, 10 grand prize pool in total, 3 grand for the winner. Not too bad.
And certainly not. And as you might have noticed, I said top 7 get through from the semi-finals next week, but there's 8 places in the final, and that is because the champion, as the rules go, the champion every year gets to come back. So in 2023, back in January, myself and Rennie Butler there in person, we saw Damien Skovron of Burst Esport winning that time around, narrowly getting past Risto Capet, who gave him a really good fight. And that was the end of a run of 3 wins in a row for RAG Esports in 2020, the first year of the competition. We had Risto Capet winning. In 21, it was Erhan Yayovsky, and then 2022, it was Yuri Toman. But then for the 4th running of the event, it was, as I say, Damien Skovron getting the win. So he doesn't need to go through this process, Zach. He can sit around until January. Of course, we know what the car and what the track is going to be, so maybe getting a little bit of extra practice as well.
Yeah, that is the fortunate thing, is that he doesn't have to practice for Bahrain and the Nürburgring and then Maastricht. He can use all of this time to focus his attention onto that final, which is obviously going to be a big help to him, but also it's not exactly been a big help to the other champions, because none of them have been able to take another one, essentially. So it is going to be tough for him to, of course, make it a double, but definitely does make his life a little bit easier going forward, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So let's get the grid for this first race of the day. Mid-Chihuahua Colin Spork on your front row with Thibaut Casbon and Gianmarco Fiducci rounding out the second row. What an awesome first page of racing that is going to be in towards turn 1. Vlietstra and Hungraf are on your third row with Bookhout and Gurkian in your 4th row. So look out for those sort of colours coming down in towards turn number 1. Sovnek and Lahu inside your top 10 with Kafino and Zagrifa inside your top 12. And do believe we have 16 drivers for this first race. So 6 drivers will be eliminated. Via and Kasparich are inside your top 7 rows with Van Zufen inside your top 15 and then Van Uyk inside your top 16, which is your grid for the first race. Remember, I have 2 more races coming up after this one as well. This is just your first one. So the top 10 is what we're looking for, and there's top 10 of each of the 3 races as well to get our 30 drivers to be competing in the semi-finals next week. So they don't win any money by doing this, but they get one step closer to getting into the final, which is, of course, the all-important bit. In person as well. Remember, there's a LAN final in Maastricht. But we get to the 20 minutes of racing, the lights out, and we are underway for Synformula Europe 2024 for the first race. And it looks like a great start there from Michi Hoy. Thibaut Casbon, though, is under attack from his outside. He's got Fiducci and Spork trying to go 3 wide in towards the braking zone. That's Spork all the way around the outside, trying to make it stick, but up the inside of turn 2. It's actually going to be Spork coming out on top. Casabon gets Fiducci in the process as we come up the straight, though. Casabon has found his his way back past Spork.
Yeah, nicely done, but a fantastic start for Michi Hoyer. Exactly what he needs to do with such a dependence on slipstream side by side here. Gianmarco Fiducci trying to go to the outside of turn number 4. Let's see if he can get himself up ahead of Colin Spork. I think he did, but very momentarily, that inside line reigning supreme. Colin Spork able to get himself back into that 3rd place, and all importantly, I mean, again, it's just about staying in contention, using all of the curb there. Colin Spork really riding the limit of this Porsche, but so far so good, no massive dramas.
Yeah, lovely racing from the front lot, but remember the top 10 is what we're focusing on, and Kurjan at the moment has that position in that 10th place, so of course we'll be focusing on that as the race goes on. Looks like it's pretty single file up towards the front though. Michi Hoyer is starting to pull a gap, and this is really what they need to do at the front. They don't necessarily need to fight to the max. Of course, if you think that people are driving and getting close to you behind them, you do, but for the likes of Michi Hoyer, if he can just have a nice clean race out the front, that is exactly what he's going for. The first lap is finished already, as we were saying, about 70-second lap time around here, so there's going to be lots of racing here in 20 minutes of action. Coming in towards turn 1 for the first time of asking at racing speed, and everyone is making that braking point. It is quite tricky in this car. The brakes are good, but they're not the same as the GT3 variant.
Yeah, not quite as good, so you do have to compensate that for, just a little bit, just braking a little bit earlier, maybe just trail braking a little bit more going into the corner as well, just making sure that the car is under control. A couple of looks to the inside. I think that's Segafredo looking to go on the move, of course, for Cafino. There you can see also this fight for 13th between Lahu and Kasparik for 13th, and of course, these guys, they need to be making some moves forward. They cannot be sitting waiting around 13th, 14th, 15th, but also sort of inside the top 10. If I was Buka or Cafino, or even Zagafer, 8th, 9th, 10th, yeah, you're inside, but by no means comfortable.
Yeah, it's certainly not, because if a few fast drivers start coming in behind, then that is going to be, a bit of alarm bells ringing for you, because the top 10 is where you get yourself in towards the semi-finals next week. And then, of course, Kurjan dropping outside of that, down in towards 12th place, is now seated via in that 11th position. Coming across the line, there's Casabon setting the fastest time. So Michi Hoyer wanted a calm race, but I think Casabon is going to be fighting it, because as much as this not necessarily is going to change the outcome of them getting into the semi-finals, this is a bit of a momentum shift, because getting inside the top 7 when we get to the semi-finals is going to be a lot harder job.
It really is, and of course, let's take a look back at the start. Michi Hoyer just off to perfection. I mean, Colin Spork there on the front row did not get off to the same launch, and that, of course, did spark a bit of a 3-wide moment going into turn number 1. You can see the purple car all the way around the outside. Nicely done in the end, but a little bit argy-bargy, but considering it's 3 wide on cold tyres, they didn't do too bad.
Yeah, that was a lovely start, to be honest. That was the way that we want to see racing. Lahui gets a penalty. That is going to be very, very important for his race, of course. Oh, he's DNF'd as well, so his race is over. Side-by-side action in the background, though. That is Vlistra and Fiducci going side-by-side in towards the final corner it is going to be. And it looks like Vlistra's made that move in the red machine. And on the outside, Fiducci in the more sort of pink machine is having to drop back in towards 5th position. And that is very good. Vlistra, he's a very fast driver, but Fiducci, of course, is very well known in the world of esports, so putting it to a top-tier driver is very good. Fiducci, though, coming back a little bit towards turn 1, though, just looking to the inside, but no return of that position. Yeah,
I don't think it, really worth it. I mean, 4th and 5th, you're fairly comfortable inside that top 10. Yeah, everyone's really close and things can change, one small mistake or getting caught up in carnage or anything like that. But is it really worth the risk? 4th, 5th, not going to make a huge difference. Of course, for Vlietstra, getting ahead of Gianmarco Fiducci was a very big achievement. And again, just comes down to sort of morale or momentum or anything like that. Can really play, can go a long way in terms of the mindset of a driver. And as you say, in a week's time when we funnel it down to 7, knowing who you can race with and knowing where you are in the pecking order is also going to be quite a huge help as well. This is a fight, of course, towards the back end of the top 10, and this is where we expect it to be quite frisky, as this is how Vitra got it done.
Yeah, just got so much of a better run off the chicane. It is a very tricky chicane. There's been a lot of discussions in the Discord about that one. It's certainly not the easiest one, especially with the track limits as well. And if you just slightly get it wrong, you lose all the speed down this back straight. And Fiducci there just having to give up that position. I don't think we actually quite mentioned it as well. It is the Porsche Cup car as well. So it's a very tricky car. There's not a lot to do in terms of setup changes. It's pretty much anti-roll bars, toes, that's about it. All the suspension stuff, dampers and that is all locked. So there's nothing that drivers can do in that regard. So they can get a little bit of balance into the car. And then the rest of it is all about the driver's skill. And a look at the cars bouncing over the curbs. It's really not an easy one to keep settled.
No, my experiences with Porsches have not boded too well for me in the past. They are just really difficult cars to drive. They reward talent. Of course, that is something that I firmly do not have, so that explains that one. But these guys, of course, have got it in bucket loads, and with the fine adjustments that they can get, yeah, you can adjust the balance, as you said. But at the end of the day, it's forcing you to adapt to what's going on around you, and of course the car that's underneath you, and of course you can't fine-tune it to ride the curbs exactly how you want to do with the dampers and things like that. So again, you have to not only change your driving style, but also potentially change your driving lines and everything just to suit the car that you're driving. That is a tough ask, and then not only to be able to do that, but also drive the car quickly, it's tough.
It certainly is. It's going to be a very tricky one when we get to Maastricht as well, with all the straights around there. But then you get to the corners, and they're, of course, the important moments that you're going to have to be getting right. But now in Bahrain Outer, it is Mitch Hoy still leading the way from Thibaut Casabon. They've started to get a big gap, though. Colin Spork has dropped off by about 2 seconds, but he's not going to be complaining with that one. Remember, top 10 is all that we're really looking for in this race. Vlietstra, Fiducci following in behind. Hangraf, Slovenak inside your top 7 with Cofino firmly inside your top 10. But then it is Zagivsa, can't say that name, instead of Vire inside your top 10. Vire, of course, getting that final place. So Bookhout is about a second and a half behind, though, so he's really starting to drop off, and his chances are dropping away, although we do have over half this race to go.
Yeah, still plenty of time, of course. He can, find a trick through the chicane or whatever and gain a couple of tenths on his lap time. But yeah, the more that gap grows, the more comfortable that Vire is going to start to feel in that 10th place, even if it is the bare minimum to scrape your way through to next week's proceedings. Yeah, at least you're there. At least you're going to be showing your face. And if he can just continue to pull that gap and not really fight with Zagafer or Cofino too much, then it is only going to be doing him, of course, good things. As there you can see, just them riding the curb. See the Vire, getting a little bit of a tank slapper, but for the most part, keeping it under control.
Yeah, he was definitely turning left in a right-handed corner, which is just showing you...
Turn right to go left, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. It's this famous quote. And to be fair, it is a faster way of going around a corner. You want to get that rear end rotated, but of course within balance. If it rotates too much, then you can't get on the power for the exit, and it's certainly not the easiest car, because I always find this car really weird because it's kind of like a GT3 that's been dulled down, so you lose some of the assists. Of course, there's no ABS or anything like that, so it's very tricky to drive, and in some ways it's more difficult than the GT3s, even though it's supposedly a class below that.
Yeah, it's more raw as such. It's sort of, yeah, as you say, sort of just stripped back a little bit. No ABS means that brake pedal is going to be very tentative, especially with all the heavy braking zones that we've got here at the Bahrain Outer Circuit. And yeah, of course, got less downforce and everything like that, so less grip. It is just going to be that much more of a tricky car to drive. And obviously with that does come its challenges. And turn 1, especially here at Bahrain, is a very heavy braking zone. So look out for that. To be fair, all things considered, these guys have done a pretty good job.
Yeah, they certainly have. I was expecting a couple more crashes and dives in towards turn 1 and 4, but we seem to actually get through that pretty well. But we're starting to have a nice battle up towards the front, although Mitchie Hoy is holding on from Thibaut Casabon just enough to hold on to this race lead. It's been about half a second for a little while, but I think the French driver is going to be coming very, very close up towards the back of Mitch Hoy. Of course, Casabon has been representing R8G. They're 3 times winners, as we were mentioning, of this competition, but then Mitch Hoy for Burst, they were 1-time winners last year as well. So top 2 teams in the competition up towards the front once again, at least in this first race. But do remember, we've got 2 more races coming your way where you'll see some other drivers come through. Here's your battle, though, for 10th position. This is the one where the points are going to be very important, or the position, I should say, are going to be very important. Slovenak, though, is leading a little bit of a train here.
Yeah, he is, but thankfully it's a train that's inside the top 10, so that's not too bad. The gap up to Hangraf, though, is about 1.6 seconds, give or take a couple hundredths of a second here and there, of course. And if I was Cofino, would you fight it? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, look at that fight for Vire and Bookout. I mean, that's close to just over 1.3, 1.4 seconds, which, to be fair, it was upwards of 2. So that gap definitely has closed. And obviously with mistakes and accidents and things like that can come about, maybe for Cofino, he does want to just feel a little bit more secure. I mean, it doesn't hurt to go up the order.
Yes, it's a difficult position for Vi, though, because he's got drivers battling ahead, so he does want to get caught up in that, but at the same time, battling often slows you down, so he then doesn't want Bookout to close up. So it is going to be a tricky situation, as it is, 3 cars directly in front of him that might actually cause him to lose a place if he's not careful. We've gone inside the final 10 minutes of this first race of the evening, and this is actually, to be honest, what we wanted. We wanted a battle for 10th place because that is the cut-off point. Bookout gets a penalty, though. Ooh. That's probably for cut tracks at the chicane, and that is huge because he's going to be losing time from that, and is now going to be Kasperich in 12th place, who is the car that Sidovai needs to look out for. But of course, he's another further couple of seconds back, so that gap between 10th and 11th ever increases.
Yeah, that is going to be music to the ears of Sidovai there in 10th place. He's going to be absolutely loving that. There you can see Bookout pulling off to serve that penalty. That is unfortunate because that is essentially your competition over. But everyone's on the same track. Everyone's got the same track limits. So, yeah, unfortunate. But yeah, it's how it goes, unfortunately. Sidovai, though, it puts him in the driving seat. Of course, he should, in theory, be really, really secure in that 10th place. All he's got to do is keep the car pointing the right way. Don't be hitting any barriers. Don't be hitting any of the cars. Keep the car pointed. Keep it under control, and you're through.
That is the aim of the game, but it's so easy to make a mistake and especially get the cut tracks. We were mentioning a little bit earlier about how the Discord chat was popping off about this. This chicane that we're coming up to now is very, very tight in terms of the track limits. So that's why you're going to see the drivers using the curbs a little bit, but they're not absolutely monstering them like they would. They're definitely a little bit more strict in that regard, and that just means you have to give every little bit. And here is Bookout. You're going to see he's just going to go over that white line. He's off the tarmac, and that probably was enough just to give him another point. And there's only a 3-point limit around here, so not too many with the amount of laps we're doing here being such a short track.
Oh yeah, I mean that is harsh. I mean, we're going to do, what is it, just over a 70-second lap, so probably upwards of 18, 19 laps or so over the course of this race, and you can only mess up on 3 of them essentially, which is definitely tough. Here is Kurjan trying to go for the move on Kasperich. This is for 11th place, so first of those that aren't going to be making it through, but maybe Kurjan sees some more pace in his car and wants to chase after Sidovai. He's going to push the limit and finds himself through. Very nicely done for Kasperich to defend that, of course. He needs to. The more these guys fight, the further away their target gets.
Yeah, that's their problem. That gap in between the blue and purple machines off the back of here, Sidovai and the number 10 car. Number 10 car in 10th position, that's a good one. That gap is going to ever increase, as you say, when they start battling, and that is the important one. So Sido, he's in the position that he needs, but he also can't afford to lose time. And the issue is that he might be having a little bit of a battle with Zagova just in a few moments' time as they get close up towards the final corner. Zagova is losing that little bit of a train up ahead of him.
Yeah, he is, and that's of course going to allow Sidovai to reel him in ever so slightly and potentially put him vulnerable. But again, for Vi, he's got a buffer there, upwards of nearly 4 seconds, 3.9 seconds back to Kasperich. Just sit behind Zagova. No matter, obviously, if he spins or makes a drastic mistake and it's easy to get through, by all means, yeah, absolutely go for it. But 10th, 9th, again, either way he's through. Either way, he's still going to have a big gap behind him. So don't fight it. Don't let that 4-second gap close because, yeah, you might finish 9th, but you could also finish 12th. And I know definitely which one Sidovai would prefer.
Yeah, it's a pretty harsh sort of cut-off limit, and also each split only has 1 race. So as I was mentioning, there are going to be 3 splits. There'll be 3 races like this over the course of the evening. And the way that they were split up, so the top 60 from the hot lap qualifiers got split up. So basically there was sort of 1, 2 and 3. So first position was in first split, second was in second split, and third was in third, and obviously 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, etc. But we do have, of course, this battle continuing on the screen. Recursion trying to get through. He's getting closer, almost pushing Kasperich through that chicane, but not enough to try and get past at that moment in time. You see there's not a huge amount of slipstream in this car, so it's all about the exit. Bit of a lock up there as well. Can Kirshen get on the power? Bit of a slide there from the car ahead, but is it going to be enough?
We'll find out, of course, how powerful is that slipstream. Is it long enough? Is it a long enough straight for him to send the move? Of course, no ABS in these Porsches. It's very wide in the background from Van Supen, just in the background. But you can see, let's see if Kirshen's going to be close enough to be the last of the late breakers. Not quite. Bit of a lock-up from Kasperich. A big lock-up, actually, in the end, but keeps it under wraps. Bit of a slide. There's a slight tap from the number 8 machine, but all is good so far. It's just not ideal because they can see it. I mean, they're tantalisingly close. They're in 11th and 12th place of a 10th place cut-off. But unfortunately, that 10th place is getting further and further away.
It certainly is, and I actually like the fact that this is sort of like a 20-minute race rather than like a 10-minute sprint, because this gives the opportunity for people to make mistakes later on in the race where they know that they are potentially in a position and starting to get a little bit nervous as you see them bouncing over these curbs, trying to get the run onto this back straight. See the wiggle of that rear end, because not quite enough that time around to get close. There's a little bit of a frustrating situation as the gap opens up by 4.5 seconds out. So a huge lock up though in towards the final corner. Once again, you really see how much Kasperich is moving on the brakes, but Kurjan as well. He's trying to get on the power.
Yeah, you could see their desperation starting to creep in. He saw the opportunity and tried to plant the throttle, get that exit off the final corner, and didn't quite work out in his favour. And I think it has gotten rid of this opportunity down into turn number 1. I mean, he is going to close the gap under brakes, but definitely not enough as a very small mistake from Kasperich in the end. But all as good as Kurjan, I think, just getting a little bit too eager on that loud pedal, which, in fairness, in these Porsches, all too easy to do.
Yes, it's a very tricky car, and it's an interesting one. In the previous couple of seasons, actually, possibly even 3 years, we've had the McLaren Senna GTR, and it's a great car in its own way. It's so much more planted. It's a bit more, it's fast. It's got more downforce. It's very powerful, of course, on the exit, but it also recently had the ABS and TC added. But in these cars, none of that. It's a very raw, as we've been explaining. In towards this final corner, that is a huge lockup. I mean, that's got to be 50 plus meters of lockup, but he still manages to make the apex, which is really, really good. An incursion with that huge slide, lovely slow-mo there of the car. Manages to save it well, but he doesn't want to be doing that if he wants to get past. And as you see, that gap is a bit bigger this lap.
Yeah, ever so slightly. Even with Kasperich's small mistakes, he is just able to sort of just make them not really seem like mistakes, maintain the pace as best he can. But yeah, Kurjan, that was a nice little slow-mo there. Quite enjoyed that. Very, very picturesque. I'm sure he's going to nick that one. Another huge lockup, this time a little bit worse, but Kasperich is able to still just take a ever so slightly later apex. Yeah, the inside opens up, but it's not enough. I think Kurjan knows full well that if he does try and go for the inside when Kasperich locks up, he's getting his nose chopped off.
Yeah, he certainly would if he tries to dive it there. But if you start getting a bit desperate, that is where you need to, that's where you need to be a little bit careful. 2.5 minutes to go, and Sidovaya is sitting in that all-important 10th place. Top 10 go through to the semi-finals next week. And fortunately for Vaya, it's not a battle coming to the final couple of laps. He's got that gap behind very quickly, getting up towards 5 seconds due to the battle between Kurjan, trying to get through Kasperich, but not enough. He might do, though, in the background, in towards the final corner. Can he do a good job under the brakes? No, he can't. They just about both make it to the apex, but Kurjan's really trying, and he might get the run this time.
Yeah, let's see. He puts his foot to the floor. He pulls out way too early, though, I think. I mean, he's definitely close enough if Kasperich does once again have that lockup. You can see the grey Porsche on the right hand side, or well, closer to silver, I suppose. There it goes to the defensive move from Kasperich. Kurjan tries to pull up to the left hand side. Who's going to be later on the brakes? It's going to be both of them really fairly even, but it's going to be Kasperich that, even despite that huge front right lockup going in, to still retain that position. I think Kurjan just being quite cautious because he knows that Kasperich is prone to that lockup and prone to going quite wide.
But he's going to have to take some risks, get past around the outside of turn 4. He's gone deeper. He's got around the outside, completed the move in towards turn 5. What a move that is there from Kurjan. He's been trying it for 4 or 5 laps, and he finally got that momentum out of turn 3 and managed to do it under the brakes. But as you say, Zach, Kasperich is really starting to struggle on those brakes, and it looks like it's going to be that position for him. On towards the final lap of the race, though, as Michihaya starts it. Casabon is getting close, but I don't think it's going to be close enough for a final lap move. But let's see how this one works out.
Yeah, of course, these two have been out in front for the entire race. Bit of a lock-up from Michihaya. This is the last time you want to be making a mistake. Of course, just corrects the car going in. All is good. He's just got one more lap. He's done plenty of them so far, I'm sure, including all of his practice. Wants one more just to seal the deal, to take the victory, of course. That is a huge step forward. Michihaya once again proving his talent. He's had a slightly up and down year, of course, in R-Factor 2, but I think a win in the quarterfinals, that'd be a big statement.
Oh, it certainly would, going in towards the semis next week, where it's going to be important to get inside the top 7 out of 30, and this is going to be a big momentum boost. It's the same car but we move to the Nürburgring track in 1 week's time. We hit 0 minutes remaining, and it's one final braking zone. Who is going to be the first winner of the evening? Is it going to be Michi Hoyer? Is it going to be Casabon? Can they get the brakes in towards this final corner, pretty much the all-important one on the track as well, to get the run onto the main straight? It looks like Michi Hoyer is going to complete that corner, and from pole position, he should take the first victory of the evening. He wins the Server 1 here for the Sim Formula quarterfinals 2020 for Casabon. Very close though, in behind. Colin Spork will take a pretty calm and collected third place there. Down towards 10th place though, and Cedar Vire has a huge gap behind him. No challenges on the final lap, and Cedar Vire will complete your top 10 to move through to the semi-finals next week. So congratulations to all of those drivers inside the top 10. We'll be seeing them once again to find out what is going to happen. Let's see a replay though of Kurjan round the outside on penultimate lap of the race. He had to risk it, he had to make it stick. He went really tight there to block off Kasperich on that inside line, and what a move it was on the brakes. He went deep enough just to give him all that room in towards turn 5, and that is how you do it to get up inside P11, but it wasn't enough to get through to the semi-finals. Here is your top 10 though. And these are the top 10 that we'll be seeing. Michi Hoyer, Thibaut Casabon and Colin Spork rounding out your podium, with Stan Vlietstra and Gianmarco Fiducci inside your top 5. Stein Hangraf is P6 with Jukka Slovenak inside your top 7. Juan Cafino inside your top 8 as well, with Adam Zagava inside your top 9. And Cedar Vire, your final driver after 17 laps of action. That is certainly going to be a really, really fun one. And in a few moments, we will try and take a little bit of a word with Michi Hoyer. Kurjan, Kasperich, De Zupen, your first 3 drivers who are missing out, with Van Uwijk and of course Bookhout and Lahu getting a DNF. That is certainly been a tricky one for some of these drivers, and it's certainly not been the easiest race overall. So hopefully we can try and get a little bit of a word with Michi Hoyer in just a moment's time as he joins us in the commentary booth. Michi, of course, getting the win there. Thibaut was getting very close to you at the end. How comfortable was that in the final lap?
Can you hear me actually?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. It was a bit of... I expected it. I was actually surprised to get myself a little bit of a breathing air in the first place. Simply because, he's one of the best drivers around. And I tried to somehow save my rear a little bit, so I was expecting a little bit more pressure throughout the entire race. But of course, at the end, my rear gave up, the brain worked a little bit bad, and that enabled him the chance to come back. So yeah, it wasn't easy, let's say, but after all, I think the format with the top 10 proceeding in that position probably just contributed to the sailing home in P1.
Absolutely. And talking of the format, moving to the semi-finals next week, only the top 7 from 30 go through. So what do you think your chances are of getting that?
That is going to be pretty... I mean, it could be anyone from the top 20 of that split, top 30. There is a reason why we're doing a QF and then an SF. I think it will solely depend on the qualifying in the first place. That will be 80% of the job. And then you need to be able to hold it tight in the race. And surely if Tibor is 8th and I'm 7th in semi-final race, then yeah, we won't end up just driving behind each other, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So congratulations, Michi, on taking a victory, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
And just before we move into the second race of the evening, we'll get a quick few messages from our partners. And welcome back to the Bahrain Outer Circuit, where we've just had the first race of the evening for the Sim Formula Europe 2024 powered by NextView's quarter finals. We move into the second race though, and it was of course the top 10 that were going into the semi-finals. That's the word, next week. And now we find out the second 10 drivers. Myself, Cameron, Rodger, Zach Sweeney alongside me, and of course Ruben Correa-Alvarez doing the production behind the scenes as well. And Zach, it was a little bit more of a tame race than we were expecting, but we of course did see some nice battles there, and hopefully we see sort of a top 10 fight in this next race.
Yeah, I think that's something that we were expecting but didn't get in race one. I think that is down obviously thanks to sort of Bukat's penalty and things like that. I think also just field spread in the early stages, that gap from 10th to 11th was sort of a little bit larger than potentially we were expecting. Hopefully that's not the case in race two, because that's really where we expect the action to be. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, sort of seventh. That's going to be the comfortable zone. From eighth downwards, that's really where things start to sort of heat up as such. That's where mistakes and penalties and overtakes really start to matter that much more. That's where we're hoping to see the action. Let's hope it's a little bit closer in race two.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got another set of drivers. So these are the from the top 60 split from the hot laps. These are basically from the sort of the second place out of every three. So it's second, fifth, eighth, 11th, etc. Out of your top 60. We do have some good names there. A lot of drivers who have performed up towards the top of our Factor 2. We've got Yanni Simičić, Peter Burlak as well, Adam Pinches, Marko Pajic as well, Jan van der Heide. Zach, this is going to be a pretty tricky split for some people.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, this is not to say that the other two aren't, but this is a fairly stacked grid, I'll be honest. I mean, just looking through the names, you recognise them. Anyone that's been anywhere sort of in our Factor 2 will know the name Yanni Simičić, will know the name Peter Burlak, sort of that sort of area of esports. They are phenomenally quick drivers. Expect them, of course, to be fighting towards the front, but also sort of the underdogs, the likes of Fabian Barley, Zaka Hakkinen, maybe even David Koloksai, the number 10 car coming into this. They're good, but they're not they haven't quite had the chance to prove themselves right at the top level yet. I think today could give them a good platform to do that, but that fight sort of amongst those types of people could be a tough one.
Yeah, and of course, and they had their qualifying a little bit earlier during the Server 1 qualifying, and now, of course, we see the grid for Server 2. Turk Hakkinen put it on pole position with Maciej in second place. Peter Burlak and Yanni Simičić round out your second row. So that is looking really good, but of course, we're missing out some big names, the likes of Marko Pajic and Philip Dries inside your top 6, with David Koloksai and Remy Delorme inside your top 8. So as it stands, all these drivers are getting through. They just need to hold on, and your final drivers inside the top 10 are Fabian Ballet and Jan van der Heide. The first driver trying to get inside the top 10 will be Stein Prinz, and then we have Diogo Silva inside your top 12. And then we actually have 17 cars for this, so not the final page. Adam Pinches and Nicolas Lemon in your top 7 rows. Then we've got Carl Magnus Bohr in 15th place and Nicholas Buva inside your top 16. And then the final page is Nicholas Sabuka. So that is your 17 drivers for this second race of the evening. Once again, 20-minute race, and top 10 drivers get through. Hakkinen and Matea on that front row. That's going to be an interesting one. Then, of course, some fast names of Burlak, Simičić in behind, but we cannot count out Jan van der Heide. Of course, one of your GT Pro champions on our Factor 2 is now all the way down in 10th place. This is going to be a very tricky one as the lights come on. We get underway for Server 2 of the quarterfinals for Sim Formula Europe 2024, and let's see how this one gets underway. Huge jump there from Yanni Simičić. Amazing. I think it's Peter Burlak. He's jumped all the way down, not getting away too well. Side by side is going to be in towards the braking zone of turn number 1. Hakkinen on the inside. Simičić all the way around the outsides. Matea is actually going to be battling there with Burlak. Up the inside is going to be in towards turn 3 and 4. And Burlak might just have that up this back straight.
To find out, of course, it's going to be a drag race up towards turn number 4, Burlak versus Matea, and that fight for third. Here's Marko Pajic as well, trying to get himself involved side by side with Philip Dries, and maybe looking to go to the outside of Matea as well, who looks to the inside of Burlak. But what a start, it must be said, for Yanni Simičić, and also Hakkinen leading the way as well. What a result for him at leading, of course, that 4-time Formula Sim Racing World Champion of Yanni Simičić. It's a very calm start, though, for the time being.
Yeah, it certainly is. There's a top 2 getaway, but look at the trade of cars behind Peter Burlak from third place all the way down. And these guys, remember, as the top 10 get through, any battling that these do inside your top 5, that's going to slow them down and then bunch everyone out back behind. It is Burlak and Matea inside your top 4, then Pajic and Dries follow in behind. Currently, your P10 drivers, Diogo Silva, he's got himself inside that top 10. as it looks like a few of the drivers down the back have stayed in similar positions, but it's going to be all battling in towards turn 1 for the first time of asking at racing speed. Is heavy on the brakes maybe not quite up to full temperature yet. This could be an interesting one. Who wants to send a big dive? Looks like in the background that yellow machine sending it up the inside. Jan van der Heijden trying to make some moves. He's up into 8th place. He's got Kaloxa, I think, that is on his outside. Side by side they go. Around the outside it's going to be for van der Heijden. Can he have that stuck? I think he might do. He's up 2 places already on that first lap.
Yeah, very nicely done, making the important moves that when he needs to, just trying to secure positions as he as best he can. Pincher's, of course, the biggest gainer of the bunch, up 3, and crucially inside that top 10. So those are 3 vital overtakes for him to have made. Unfortunate for Fabian Barley, who tumbles his way all the way outside the top 10 after starting inside in 9th. He's just sort of, I think, just getting swallowed up by the pack as such.
Yeah, you don't want to be sort of getting that downward spiral. Going, especially in a race like this. There's not that much time really to get those positions back, and also it's really the time. You don't want to lose that time up towards the top. Here's Jani Simoncic from 4th position on the grid. What a launch that was going to be. Already getting up into 2nd place after about 100 metres. Then he had to have a look down the inside of Hakkinen, but unfortunately had to go to the outside. So Hakkinen did have that inside line and was able to defend. But what a start there from Jani Simoncic. He definitely knew how to get these cars off the line, and that is going to be an important factor, especially when we're looking at the races a bit earlier. The overtaking is going to be possible, but not the easiest thing in the world. His clock sign, the purple machine. Behind him is Adam Pinches. He's in that 10th place. Like in the previous race, there's a little bit of a gap between 10th and 11th.
Yeah, but it's not as big. I mean, 5.8 to leader versus 6.7. That's going to be about an 8/10th discrepancy. There you can see the gap actually. It's not a million miles. It is still closable, particularly if the likes of Pinchas and Coloxide begin to battle. But yeah, for Diego Silva, he is going to have to try and close that gap as best he can. Stein Prince is going to have to go with him because, again, 12th, it's only 2 places off 10th, but it is still a while away. There is still a lot of work to do.
Yeah, it certainly is, and needs to be careful not to be making too many mistakes. It seems like this sort of the first 5-10 minutes of the race, of course, is the important one, to not lose that gap up towards the front. But like we saw in the first race, is the top 2 that are starting to get away. Hakkinen leads Simoncic. Burlak is still leading this train. The absolute swarm of cars are coming in behind. Hakkinen setting the fastest lap time as well from the front, showing the pace that he has got. And what do these drivers do inside the top 10? Do they battle? Do they try and get higher up to defend themselves as such from the cars charging in behind, or do they sit in and try and guarantee that spot? That's a decision that they need to make, and it's certainly a crucial one if they want to get inside and hold on to that top 10.
Yeah, it's one they're going to need to think about for sure. I mean, there is still quite a long way to go in this race. I mean, when you think about it, 16 minutes, not that long of a time, but you're still thinking long term. You're still thinking, where am I going to set myself up to be in that final sort of 5, 4, 3, 2 minutes of this race, that final lap, more importantly. Ideally, you're going to be inside the top 10, but how high up inside the top 10 do you want to be? Because with how close it is on pace, I mean, right now, Pinches versus Silva is, just to be fair, just over a second. So maybe the top 10 working together to branch themselves away from that lower cut-off point in behind. I think maybe we need to start seeing that lower from 11th downwards, maybe working together a little bit better to reel themselves inside that top 10. But I think so far, across both races, Cam, the general consensus has been, if you're 10th place or higher, stay there.
And also what I'm thinking about is the top 10 that are going through now, fast drivers. Only 7 from the semi-final get through, and we already have 10 drivers here that would be worthy of that. Of course, you get 10 drivers from the other 2 races happening this evening as well. This is race 2, got race 3 still to come, and 10 drivers have already secured their place from that first race. So the semi-final next week is going to be so competitive at the Nürburgring. It's going to be a very tricky one indeed. So the drivers need to learn now how they can overcome the sort of issues in the race with the car and how it handles over the course of a 20-minute run, and just see what they're going to do. Just use it as a bit of a learning experience for that semi-final.
Yeah, that semi-final is going to be brutal. Like, what a purge of drivers that is going to be. I mean, top 10 in there, you could make a case for all of them getting through, and yet there's 20 more of them to come. Like, well, 10 more of them to come after that. We've already got the previous 10. Like, that is going to be insane. Like, just the top level being funneled down between the best and the bestest, I suppose, is one way you can put it, because these guys are just, have got bucket loads of talent, and they're going to need to bring their A game. And that's the thing. The margins are going to be so fine in a week's time that even if you're Jerne Simoncic or Peter Berlak, who is a very decorated sim racer, one small mistake and you could be completely out of this competition.
Yeah, you certainly could, and we haven't actually seen it just yet this race, but remember the cut tracks are a little bit tight around here, so you've got to be careful to not do that. Don't lose your concentration, and especially with the wiggly rear end on this car, you could easily just step it outside of the lines, and then the automatic in-game cut detection will detect you being off the track, and you'll be getting a penalty if you do that, more than 3 points, which is the important number. But as you see, the driver's leaving plenty of spaces. A little bit further back, this is Bohr in 13th place. He's on the little bit of a train that is coming up for this top 10. So Pincher's there. He is going to be potentially under attack, although there is a little bit of a gap for him.
Yeah, ever so slightly. I mean, what is it now? About 1.4. So far fairly safe, but one twitch on the exit of a corner and you could very easily lose that momentum. So Pincher's definitely, well, for now 1.4 seconds is fairly secure, fairly safe. Don't take it for granted, don't get complacent, I think is going to be the aim of the game. Fabien Bardet, of course, trying to fight his way back into contention. He had a great, didn't have a great start, but he had a great starting position. As in the background there, I think that is Sobolka having some issues off the exit of the final corner. But for Fabien Bardet, he had a great starting position in 9th, already inside the top 10. All he had to do was stay there. Unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. The question is, what can he do from now?
Yeah, it's a brutal format. It really is. If you make a mistake, then unfortunately you're going to be going back. And look how much the cars are bouncing over the curbs there. That is pretty crazy. And you're going to see now Bardet being under attack. Bouvier around the outside in towards turn 4. We saw this in the previous race. Kershin managing it around the outside, but unfortunately Bouvier not quite far enough alongside to make that one stick. But it's certainly quite a good overtaking opportunity. Actually, let's see in towards the final corner. Bouvier in this turquoise machine, getting the run, but that was a huge slide there. From Fabien Bardet just up ahead, which of course doesn't help the rear tyres so much, puts a lot of heat, a lot of stress into them as we're coming inside the final 12 minutes of this race. Hakkinen, Simoncic still leading the way. Berlak, Mattea inside your top 3 and 4. Simoncic up 2, Mattea down 2. They reverse positions, sort of going either side of Berlak. Berlak staying in that 3rd place. And the main mover downwards is Fabien Bardet, as we have been mentioning. But someone who has been on the move upwards is Jan van der Heide in that yellow machine. He's got himself up there in towards 8th place. And also Adam Pinches, who's made 3 places up inside the top 10, which is exactly what he needs to do in that number 4 machine. Of course, Podovarnage competition. They had a couple of drivers here last year. Bert Knops actually getting on the P3 last year. Of course, we said Damon Scovron was the champion, but of course, Bert Knops as well getting in that 2nd position. So that was a very good job from them. Unfortunately, their teammate Denis Zitak on the day not able to get up too high. And was Risto Capet as well, getting 2nd place after being champion a couple of years previous. Here's Diogo Silva inside that P11, unfortunately just dropping off and not able to keep up with the top 10.
Yeah, that is of course heartbreaking, because you're close and your pace might not be that far off, but unfortunately it's not quite enough. And I think finishing P11 is worse than finishing sort of 13th, 14th, 15th, because at least in sort of 13th, 14th, 15th, you can say, yeah, fair enough, I wasn't, really that close. I need to, recoup and do a little bit better, whatever. But for Diogo Silva, it's like, it's right there. I can physically see the cut-off point for the semi-finals, and yet he just can't quite reach that level. It's just slowly but surely getting further and further away from him, which, as a driver, is surely must be quite demoralising.
Yeah, it's not the easiest thing, the mental side of the racing. Of course, as we get to the final 10 minutes, halfway through this 2nd race of the night. And yeah, it's one thing just driving the car, but then second, having the mentality that comes with it, especially when you get to a higher level, especially something like this where not necessarily today, but eventually there's prize money on the line. If you get yourself to Maastricht, you want to be getting into that, especially some of these drivers, they're professional, semi-professional drivers, and it's almost a wage. So it's something that you're fighting for, and that is definitely added pressure, along with many of these drivers are part of proper esports organizations. There's sponsors, there's people to keep happy, as well as yourself. We've got yellow flags out there. That's Sobolka maybe having some further issues as he's dropped way off, and he's now 20 seconds off the back of the train.
Yeah, not really had the best races, to say the least, unfortunately for Sobolka. Of course, we saw that mistake a little bit earlier on coming out of the final corner. Unfortunately, it has just gone a little bit haywire, got a little bit worse, but still in the race, still not parked it for now. I mean, that is definitely showing something in terms of perseverance, just getting to the end. I mean, we saw in race 1 a couple of drivers just immediately DNFing, which can't blame him for that either, but it's nice to see Zabulka seeing it out to the end.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you've done the hard part of getting yourself inside the top 60. Well, I say it's top 60. Obviously, a couple of the 60, chose not to race. So there's a couple sort of reserve drivers from, position 61, 62, etc. Zabulka, though, just struggling a bit on that rear end and eventually just losing it, unfortunately, with the rear engine in these cars. Once the weight goes around, it keeps going. It's swinging around that front axle and it's quite far away. So there's a big pendulum effect. And unfortunately was not able to save that one. Here's Diogo Silva in sort of a yellowy gold machine on towards this back straight. Prince still very, very close, not able to get close enough. And unfortunately, the pair of them don't have that pace. So just like the first race, that big gap is keeping this top 10 battle very sort of calm. And I wonder if that's going to be a bit different in that third race.
Yeah, let's hope so, because again, as we say, it's the big talking point, the big action zone. That is a huge mistake, though, from Diogo Silva coming out of the exit of the final corner. Let's see what Simon Prince can do, potentially going into turn number 1. But even if he does get ahead, does he have the pace to charge for 10th? He just wants to get the 11th place, pulls up to the right-hand side. Is he going to be later on the brakes going in? Of course, has that inside line, but the momentum swings the way of Silva, who hangs the move around the outside. Very nicely done from the number 6 machine, but he kept the foot in, did Stein Prince. A little bit of contact on the exit, or at least very nearly. Now as they emerge towards turn 4, still side by side.
Certainly. Oh, can he complete the move, though, in towards turn 4? He's going to be up the inside. That should be the racing line if he can just squeeze him out, but no, he can't. Diogo Silva's going to keep his nose in there in towards turn 5. That's so tight between the pair of them. They give each other just about enough space. Prince completes the move, though, as Silva has to back out of that one. That opens up the door a little bit for Ball. Oh, he's made a huge mistake, though. Silva completely misses the chicane, and he's going to DNF with Zabulka as well. I wonder if there's an issue there, if that's just a personal decision to back out of the race. But Prince there with an awesome move up to P11.
Yeah, really, really great stuff. Unfortunate, of course, for Silva and now Zabulka, who both unfortunately have called it a day and gone for a DNF. Here is a very close fight as well behind Peter Berlak. We've got Matej, Marko Pejic as well, not too far off the back of the 4th place driver. But again, it's been fairly single file. I mean, the top 10 have been incredibly close. It's not been too interested in fighting each other because, as we've said many a time, there's not any point. You don't gain anything. There's no championship points or anything like that. It purely is just a position-based cut-off. So finishing first, finishing 10th doesn't give you any bigger advantage going into the semi-final or even the final in Maastricht. It's purely just to decide who makes up the numbers.
Oh, definitely. And I think the important point for the drivers getting through as well is they want to see who is getting through with me inside that top 10. Of course, they'll check the results from the other races as well, because they are going to be their rivals for the semi-finals next week. So it's going to be a fun one, to be honest, when we see that, because Nürburgring Sprint as well, so it's a shorter variant of Nürburgring. It's going to be a very, very tricky one. And as Michio said in the interview after Server 1 race, it's going to be a tough race. The qualifying is going to be so important. So yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting one for those drivers. Here's the battle, though, that continues on for P12. Prince is pulled away, but Fabian Ballet needs to try and recover those positions. But also Lemoyne is coming in behind. Huge defensive maneuver to the inside from Ball.
Yeah, he really wants that 12th place. Fabian Barley, of course, is going to spark some sort of a move. Nicolas Lemoyne just sitting behind for now, seeing what he can do in order to get involved. Barley does pull alongside and ahead, in fact, going in. Let's see what Ball can do. Of course, trying to go and retain that inside line. Was later on the brakes, but the up and under potentially from Lemoyne. You can see a little bit sideways, a little bit squirrely from the 17 machine. Here comes Lemoyne. He's on the left-hand side, and let's see if he can get that 12th place, or 13th place.
And he should have a good run around the outside like we saw, but is he going to be able to brake late enough? He's a lot more alongside than we saw Diogo Silva. One lap ago, side by side into was a very tricky turn 5, but Ballet should just about be able to hold on to that one. But Lemoyne is getting very, very close, and I mean, I think he's really sort of looking to get past quite soon, although he's made a bit of a mistake there in the chicane. He's lost a couple of car lengths, and Fabian Ballet is actually almost gaining a bit more time on Ball in towards the final corner. We're going just about 3 laps to go or so in this race, and here is a replay in the background. Side by side they came. This is Diogo Silva 1 lap ago on the outside line, trying to get through. They got so close, they gave each other just about enough space to try and make a stick. Then Silva came to the right hand side and then in towards the chicane, sort of locks up a bit and then just goes off the track and DNFs.
Yeah, I think that mistake obviously just sort of signed the deal that nothing was really going to materialise from this. The fight was over. Of course, you can see Bohr backing out of it in the end, going through this long right-hander, but turning while braking, car snaps, he cuts across the track, and then just decides to DNF, which, again, at that point, you know you've made that mistake. You were already only fighting for 11th place at best anyway. As a driver, was there really much point in continuing?
Yeah, that is true in some ways, but also, you put in the effort to get here, you might as well finish the race. There's just a few more minutes from that point of view. Definitely like seeing as many drivers as we can getting to the end of these races. It's certainly, a good one to see all of the finishes where possible. Here's Marco Page in 5th place. He's behind Mattea, who has dropped off a little bit from Berlak, who himself is following Simičić, who's dropped off a bit from Häkkinen. So the top 3 sort of in no man's land just a little bit, but Page is getting a little bit closer for 4th place.
He is reeling him in bit by bit, and to be fair, this top 10 is really secure. Of course, Pinchas to Prince is about 4 seconds, so maybe there is a little bit of a bigger room for these guys to have some fun. Again, it is unnecessary risk. Anything can go wrong. One small bit of contact, you're round, and you're going to be losing a lot more than 4 seconds. So, in that respect, fair enough. But also, just have some fun. Let loose a little bit. Find out who and who you can and can't potentially fight with. Who your main adversaries are going to be coming in that semi-final. Because, right now, only half the grid is going through. When we get to, of course, the Nürburgring, 7 out of 30 are going through, which is just over 20% or 80%, or just under 80% are going to be sort of knocked out of that proceedings going into the top 7. So you are going to be forced to make some overtakes regardless of where you are on circuit. Surely you want a little bit of experience of how you're going to stack up.
Oh, definitely. You got to be, sort of putting your name out there as well. Because everyone knows, coming now, Michi Hoyer winning that first race, Turkka Häkkinen likely to win this race as well. So they have already put their names on the board as such for being competitive at that next race as well. And it's only 1 week. So, of course, we did have Zandvoort for the qualifiers, where they had about a week or so to get their laps in on the server. But then I wonder if some drivers then start focusing on this a little bit earlier, because they did have a good 2 weeks after that, but now we only have 1 week to next time. So it's getting closer and closer, not so much practice time, and getting comfortable with the car, and especially over the course of a 20-minute stint. And I believe it's actually a 30-minute race next time out as well, so it's a bit longer, and the drivers will definitely need to have the consistency in that car and the confidence over the course of a longer run.
Right, and not only is it longer run, it's also a more technical circuit. I mean, Bahrain out it's difficult in sort of its own respect, I suppose, but there's not as many corners. You get to the Nürburgring, albeit, on the sprint tracker as opposed to the full Grand Prix layout. There are a lot more twists, there are a lot more turns. There are more opportunities for you to make that mistake as such, and also it is going to be a lot more narrow. There is not as much of a margin to mess up as it comes to Häkkinen to start the final lap of the race with 43 seconds left on the clock. But yeah, consistency is going to reign supreme. So between now and next Thursday, crunch time. And I don't really think many of these people are going to be touching grass for a long time.
That is true. And remember as well, if you get yourself inside that top 7 and you get yourself to the land final in Maastricht in January, you're guaranteed a minimum of €750 just for showing up. So as much as the prize money is gifted out after Maastricht, you've got to effectively see it as getting a 7th place next week in the semi-final is already that €750 as well. So for the drivers who of course take these things very seriously, they'll already be thinking about that. They'll be knowing what is on the line, which is cool as well, that we have the format where everyone gets the prize money in the finals. But we are of course at 0 minutes remaining, and this is the second race of the evening. Turkka Häkkinen from that pole position managed to hold off Jone Simičić on that first lap and has pulled away ever since, and he comes through the final corner for this final time after 20 minutes of racing, and Turkka Häkkinen will win the second race of the night. Fabian Ballet gets a penalty on the final lap as well, but it's Häkkinen across the line to win the second race for Jone Simičić, Peter Balak in third place, with Mattea and Pajic rounding out your top 5. And down to the battle for the top 10, it did get a little bit closer on the final couple of laps. Pinchas dropped off, but Alan Pinchas confirms himself inside the top 10, and we'll be seeing him next week for the semi-finals. Unfortunately, these drivers in behind, they just weren't able to get close enough. They had their own battles, and Prince even pitting on that final lap along with Fabian Ballet. But Turkka Häkkinen dominant out front.
Very nice race indeed, and a really good display of form from Turk Hakkinen, of course. Beating four-time Formula Sim Racing World Champion Yannick Simicic, one-time Formula Sim Racing World Champion Petter Berlak. These aren't slow drivers by any means, and it was Hakkinen that took the top step.
Yeah, certainly was. So your top 10 drivers who go through to the semi-finals next week are Turk Hakkinen, Yannick Simicic, Petter Berlak inside your top 3, Lucas Matea, Marko Pejic and Philip Dries inside your top 6, Remy Delorme, Jan van der Heide and David Klockstein inside your top 9. And after making up 3 positions in the race, it is Adam Pinchers who gets your final place inside the top 10. Stein Prins will get P11 with Carl Magnus Bohr also getting P11, so that graphic is obviously wrong. Nicholas Lemoyne will get P13. That will be Fabian Ballet will be 14 and Nicholas Bouvier will be 15th place. And then it is going to be, of course, 2 DNFs of Diogo Silva and Sabula who get themselves unfortunately the only DNFs of the race. And hopefully in a few moments time we can get some words with Turkka Hakkinen as well, after of course a very dominant performance. It was certainly a tricky race to hold on to the car in the background as well. But Turkka, is he here? Can he hear me inside the commentary booth? Not quite sure.
Hello guys.
Oh yes, awesome. So Turkka, not only was that a race win, but that was a pole position. So first of all, talk about your qualifying lap.
Quali was decent. The first attempt I managed to invalidate because I went wide, but then I felt like I had the confidence to actually do a 10.9 the whole night, so I was reasonably happy with that. And then it was fairly simple because you only need a top 10, so I wasn't stressing too much about the race then after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And also in towards turn 1, you had a little bit of a look around the outside from Yannick Simicic. Did you really feel a little bit of pressure there in the braking zone?
I felt like I wanted to defend it. I mean, this was my first start with a double clutch and I messed it up. As you can see, Järne did really well and almost capitalized. I think he was P4 from the beginning and he almost went P1 by turn 1, so good on him.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking forward to next week now. You've got yourself in towards the semi-final. We go to Nürburgring. That's going to be a tricky one, isn't it? So you're going to be putting a lot of focus on the qualifying to make sure that you're up there towards the top 10 again?
Yeah, as much time as I can put into it. I'm a bit disappointed I didn't start practicing for Nürburgring before this race already, but time constraints are a thing, so we'll see what we can do in a week. Luckily I have Philip Dries, my teammate from neatracing.com, to assist me, so it's all good. Let's see.
Yeah, absolutely. And just lastly, how are you finding the car? It's a little bit of a tricky one. It bounces all over the place. It must be quite hard to get the speed out of it.
I disliked it a lot at Zandvoort, actually. I was like P50 something in the qualifier, so I barely made it through. But here at Bahrain, it's fun, yeah. The bouncing costs a lot of time, but it's a fun car. The braking really makes up for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So congratulations on your win today, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
And just before we go into the third and final race of the evening, once more, we'll get some messages from our partners. The desert is certainly giving us some action this evening as we're here for the quarterfinals of the Sim Formula Europe 2024 powered by NextView. We've got our 2 winners already of Mitschi Hoyer and Turkka Häkkinen, but of course plenty of drivers following in. Is the top 10 that we are looking for today from each of these races, and 20 drivers have locked themselves into the semi-final next week, but there's still 10 more drivers. It's myself, Cameron Rodger, Zach Sweeney alongside me in the commentary booth, and Ruben Correa-Alves doing the production behind the scenes. And Zach, of course, we haven't necessarily seen a battle for the win or for P10, but this final race is the final chance for some drivers to get themselves into the semi-final next week, and surely some big dives, some big sends are coming our way.
Yeah, hopefully. Let's bring it on. Of course, for these guys, it's their first and only race of the evening, of course, so the other two don't really make much relevance to them. They're only focused on this one and this one only, but the general consensus remains the same, is to be inside the top 10. Ideally, of course, have qualified well, when they're in that stage, be inside the top 10 ideally, get off to a good start, as we've seen from the likes of Mitschi Hoyer and Janne Simičić as such. They've been able to just catapult off the line, get a good start and use that momentum to just remain inside the top 10. But also, we've seen quite a big sort of cut off from P10 to sort of P11, 12, 13, that sort of area. That, from the top 10 qualifiers to the P11 who don't, there's been, quite a big spread quite soon. So if you are starting P11, 12, 13, so far the pattern is you need a good start, otherwise you're probably going to be 3 seconds behind P10 very quickly.
Yeah, it seems like the slipstream isn't quite as big as some drivers would have wanted to make up loads of positions, but we did see Adam Pinches in that previous race. He went from 13th to 10th, and that got him that space, so it's definitely possible. And looking a little bit forward to this race again, I mean, that last race is pretty stacked, but we also have some good names. Once again, we've got Isaac Hillison, so we've got Alessandro Ottaviani, we've got Rick Van Erle, David Mrocek as well. We've also got Tom Oldemenger, who participated last season as well, Wojtek Polesny. A lot of top drivers once more, Zach, and hopefully they can give us some great races indeed. But hopefully we'll be able to see the grid now for the race. In their qualifying session, Isaac Gillison actually did get on that pole position with David Mrocek in behind him. Then Mate Janster is in the second row with Rick Van Erle. Of course, Rick was attending the Maastricht last year as well. Zanto is in 5th place with Ottaviani in 6th. Then Yannick Fliess and Tobias Hoffmann round out your top 8 drivers on the grid. There's Wojtek Polesny and Dylan Klaver inside your top 10. Tom Oldemenger will be the first driver trying to get himself inside the top 10, with Loic Meunier following him in behind. And certainly going to be a tough one for these drivers. As we see, Angel Benes is in 13th place with Ulysse Neel in 14th. Then it's Jeroen Gudasuna in P15 with Bruno Gil in P16 as well. So these drivers really need to work their way through on the opening lap to try and get themselves up inside that top 10. And a reminder, top 10 is what goes through to the semi-finals. And this is the final race of the evening. The final 16 drivers trying to get their way in towards the final, in towards the semi-final, I should say. And it's going to be a close one. Gillison, Mrocek on that front row. Janster and Van Erle in behind as the lights go out for the third and final race of the evening. Final 10 positions to be made inside your semi-final. That's a bit of a terrible start there by someone on that second row, really starting to drop down. I think it was Janster. So Van Erle's got himself up inside your top 3 already. Around the outside, a little bit off David Mrocek. It's Gillison who leads the way very comfortably, though, up towards the front. They're side by side, many positions deep in towards turn 2 and 3. Almost some contact there is going to be on the outside as Benes has a battle.
Yeah, thinking about going for a move. Also, you can see just a little bit further up, I think that might be Klaver fighting away with Neel going into turn number 4. Indeed it is. Neel trying to go the long way round through the braking zone. Klaver not really got much of a defence. He's trying to nip his nose back on the inside, but not quite able to. That momentum through 4 that leads you into 5 is sensationally good and just allows you to carry that momentum and stay ahead. So far, so good, though. Isaac Gillison already bridging out nearly a 1 second gap ahead of David Mrocek.
Yeah, seems being in P1 is very good around here. We've seen that on the 3 races so far. The leader seems to get a little bit of a jump. And of course, the all-important 10th place is covered by Klaver, but Loic Meunier is right in behind. And unfortunately, it was Oldemenger who really dropped down on that first lap. He's dropped down to P15. He was in that P11, but he's really dropped off and he's got a lot of work to do to get himself up. As we're going to see a replay of the start here. Yeah, was that a 3rd position driver of Janster just dropping down and unfortunately getting a really, really bad start. We were 4 wide for a moment, always closing in on 5 wide right at the back of the field as the drivers try and work their way in towards turn 1. But for the first time of Basket Racing Speed is Benitez in this P13 trying to make a move. Unfortunately, not quite enough there to get past.
Yeah, definitely thought about it. And Hoffman probably was thinking about just allowing a little bit of room in case Benitez did actually end up committing to that one. Dylan Klaver, though, he's got Moya not a million miles behind him, of course, only half a second. And if he continues to have twitches like that, that 10th place is going to start to feel less and less secure. I think the important thing for him is probably just going to be to attack Neil Price, because as we've said, 10th place, yeah, it's in the cutoff, but it's not comfortable at all, especially when Moya is, well, essentially now just breathing down his neck.
Yeah, this is going to be, not, as you said, the most comfortable position. A couple of tenths is sort of that gap where you start looking in your mirrors a little bit too much, and hopefully it works out rather nicely. But to start the next up, Isaac Gillison still leading the way with Rodger and Van Erle just trying to follow him through. Similar sort of style of race as we're seeing in the previous two. It's interesting how that one works out, but look at the absolute train of cars. Gillison also setting the best lap times. I think this goes all the way down to P13, and Angel Baez right at the end there as he's going to send it on the inside of turn 1. Huge send over the curbs, trying to get himself up the inside of Hoffman, but Hoffman just about is able to hold on to that one. That was a huge send by the Spaniard as he works his way up towards turn 4 now, but somehow their cars are still in one piece.
Yeah, somehow very aggressive driving, some of the best that we've seen all evening, in fairness. A little bit of a love tap from Benitez, the back end of Hoffman. He did think about going for the move as well, but no way through for now. Unfortunately, as good as this battling is and as aggressive as it is, it's losing them time. Hoffman to Moyne and Klaver, that fight for P10 is now just over 1.5 seconds, so really not ideal for them, albeit giving us a great time in the commentary booth.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just looking a little bit further down. Tom Odermeyer, he did get past Gill initially for 14th, 15th place, but he's dropped back down to 15th. So unfortunately, he's really dropped back. And as you say, with Hoffman and Benitez battling, this whole group has dropped off the back of Meunier. And Meunier now is that one. This is something that we didn't see in the previous races where sort of P11, P10 were quite close together. But this time around, that looks like it is going to be the case. And Klaver is going to have a big job trying to hold on to that one. Gillison setting the fast lap once again. He's over 2 seconds in the lead of Rodger. He's really running away with this one.
Yeah, what incredible pace Isaac Gillison is demonstrating. Of course, has competed towards the top end of esports for quite a while, obviously competing in the Formula E Accelerate, the Racing Prodigy stuff, and the only reason that he didn't compete further in Racing Prodigy stuff is because he's too tall, so he's definitely got the talent to back it up. He is a incredibly quick driver. There is Benitez trying to send the move to the inside. What a send that was in the end. Small bit of contact, but all in all, within the limits.
Yeah, just about, but that was getting close between those drivers. And it's funny that you say about Gillison being too tall. I mean, he is Dutch, right? So they are known.
That's true. When we saw him in London, tall. I was like, hang on.
Yeah, it doesn't help that you and Dan Thacker are
that is true. We are
on the shorter side. I'll be polite.
Cheers. No, it's fine. It's fine, because I'm taller than Ewan O'Leary, and he's fifth for the semi-final, so it's all right.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Ewan O'Leary will be in the commentary booth next week alongside me for the semi-final, which will be obviously sad to see you go, Zach, but so to be a fun one nevertheless as we try and see the top 7 drivers who qualify into the final. But tonight is the top 10 that we're looking out for, and it is Klaver who still holds on to that position with Meunier in 11th place. Oh, someone has completely missed their braking zone. There's that Pelesny. Yeah, I think it is dropping down completely. Just didn't make the corner at all, went wide, and unfortunately is actually in the end he's only lost 1 place from that, so he recovered that pretty well. I was expecting him to drop back even further. He's got Neil up behind him, who by the way has made up 5 places to get himself inside the top 10 and actually potentially secured that with a sort of a barrier car in behind him.
Yeah. So really is sort of heating up. I have to say, near like 5 positions is mightily impressive to sort of get them into that top 10. And again, I suppose proving our point that a good start is vital here at this circuit. So really good stuff from Neil. And of course, with that sort of barrier car of Klaver behind is for sure going to be helping him. Let's take a look as to what's happened. Of course, Wojciech Pelesny going into turn number 1, quite late on the brakes. Way too late on the brakes. That was close, and I'm sure he was fairly scared in the cockpit, because anyone would be, I think.
Yeah, there's a little purple light next to the rev counter on the LCD. There's a little purple light, and it comes up when you lock your wheels. And there's sort of like 4 or 5 lights, and it obviously tells you how bad you're locking your wheels. It was all of the lights there. That inside right wheel was just completely locked up, wasn't able to make the corner. And fortunately, as I said, only losing 1 place. So that is not too bad for him, because a big mistake there could have taken him outside the top 10, and it would have been a very potentially expensive lockup, not giving him at least the chance to fight inside the semi-finals next week. So 1 week's time we'll be back at the same time, which was 8 p.m. European time back here on the SFE YouTube channel, as that was a terrible run there out onto the back straight. Ottaviani's going to be getting a huge run on Janster. He's dropped down 2 places already. Maybe this is a third.
Let's see. Looking to eye things up, but yeah, not quite close enough going into the final corner. Just approaching the halfway point of this race. You can see Ottaviani trying to eye up that move if he can, but not quite. Janster, of course, struggling, but even if he's down 3 places, he's still inside the top 10, and that is all that matters. Who cares that you've lost 3 places? Ottaviani potentially going into turn of 1. Is he going to be brave enough on the brakes? He definitely has a bit of a look. He rolls off ever so slightly, just takes the apex away. Very nicely done, and I think Janster is just allowing it to happen, because 5th, 6th, it's top 10.
Yeah, he certainly is, but he doesn't want that backward momentum to keep going, because if each of those drivers, lap by lap, come past him, then he's going to be outside the top 10 very, very quickly. So he's got to be careful with that one. But Ottaviani really that was a professional move, I would say. He put this car in the perfect place. He still made it to the apex, and he just a nice clean pass. Nothing really to worry about on that one. And Janster behind needs to try and keep that momentum going, because Yellow Police and Vojta Pelesny and Neil as well, they're only a second or 2 behind, so just definitely needs to be looking out for that one. But the top 4 or so have pulled away. Gillison still leads Mrocek, Vanel and Zanto at the front. Here's a replay of that move. Ottaviani, the door was wide open, there wasn't really a defence, and Ottaviani just got his car in the perfect place.
Yeah, just nicely planted the car exactly where it needed to be, and found his way past fairly easily. Wasn't too difficult of a fight cut up. But let's take a look at the start from Jules Neal, of course, making up 5 places in this race so far. Got 2 right off the jump, then immediately started attacking for 3, then another 4th as well. It all started essentially going into turn number 1, and it really defined the pace of this race for him. He was so aggressive, so confident as well, sent the move to the inside of the 19 as well. Small bit of contact, but as far as race starts go, I think you can get much better than that.
Yeah, that was nice. Everyone jostling for position, but not so just pushing them completely off the track. So that is a great one to see, because in this sort of style of racing, sometimes you can, if the drivers are feeling like it, you can see a little bit too much contact than you would have liked. But talking of contact, Munir needs to be careful to get past Claver cleanly and not get a penalty from that. We do have, of course, race control looking out for this one, and look, Munir, he is getting closer, and that position in front of him, not only is it for 10th place, but it is a position in the semi-finals. Unfortunately, didn't get the run onto that back straight, actually losing a little bit of time. So Munir now needs to get the run through the final corner. Oh, he's a full opposite lock. He's going to lose it. Can he save it? Yes, he does. But he might lose another place, because Hoffman around the outside is going to be getting the run, and now Beneus is going to get his car in position as well. So that's a huge mistake from Munir. He loses 2 places and gives Claver the opportunity to hold on to 10th rather comfortably.
Could well cost him his competition as well, losing those 2 places to Hoffman immediately on the counter-attack though. Beneus giving them the squeeze, but Moynier not going to back out of this one. Pinches at the apex, but very good move to immediately start the counter-attack. The fight back though from Beneus. There's a slight bit of contact as they run their way through 2, up through 3. It is Moynier that takes the right-hand side, but still half this race left to go. A huge snap of oversteer thanks to some contact on the straight line. Beneus, though, is going to hold that 12th place. Moynier, it was a good counter-attack, but not enough. And Claver is going to be loving the fact that he's now able to have the biggest breathing space that he's had all race long. It's down to Hoffman, though, in order to try and dethrone him for that qualifying place.
Yeah, he had to go for it, didn't he? And Munir, but unfortunately, he just pushed it a little bit too hard. He saw that open door coming as Claver went wide in the final corner, but Munir himself then made a mistake, losing that rear end. It just shows you how small the margins are around here. Sometimes you see the drivers maybe not overtaking, sitting in behind, and you think that it's almost looking easy, it's a little bit boring, but they're on the limit and they're pushing every single lap. And it's just the drivers are so consistent nowadays that they're able to hold on. We're talking of holding on though. Can Meunier gets one position back at least. Banez, it goes hard defense to the right-hand side, down the front straight away. Meunier's going to have to go to the outside in towards turn 1, trying to make that move. Side by side they go. Banez has the inside line, still has sort of the racing line at the apex. Big chunk of the curb though. Meunier gets the run in towards turn 2, but just about able to get past.
Yeah, but let's see what the run's going to be like going into for Benet. It's definitely going to be hampered by that small touch of oversteer. Well, not even a small touch, a big touch of oversteer. Meunier, is he going to be brave enough on the brakes? Has a small look, but can't quite commit. Now we've got Gil and Oldenmanger now arriving on the scene as well. So this is turning itself into a mighty battle. What about that gap, though, between Hoffman and Klaver? It's still hovering just over a second, so Klaver's still out of the woods for now. Oldenmanger trying to look for that move on the inside of Gil going into the chicane as well, but Benes, I mean, I understand why he wants to defend from Meunier, because, you know, he needs to be as close as he can to that top 10, but also at the same time, he's only damaging himself by fighting so hard.
Yeah, sometimes drivers could just look at the positions a little bit too much, because he might see, 12th is better than 13th. But, as you say, you've got to think about the time. What is your time to P10? Because sometimes it's easier almost to let them pass and then still be closer to P10, potentially. Let's see Meunier here. This is the mistake in towards the final corner. And you see he sort of over-rotates a little bit there, and unfortunately didn't quite have the room. He was sort of pinched on the inside, sort of do any major saves, and he did save it pretty well. But look at that full opposite lock slide in the rear end. Unfortunately ends up facing the fence on the inside, and that is not the fastest way to go through the corner.
Yeah, but it looks the coolest. So style points. Style points, just, you know, no qualification for semi-finals. So way up, pros and cons, I suppose. Let's see some positive signs, although I don't think Loic Meunier is going to appreciate the fact that he's Drift King, because he might not well be able to move forward in the Sim Formula Europe 2024 Championship. Of course, you can see this fight starting to materialise for 4th place, Santo versus Ottaviani. Alessandro Ottaviani, of course, slowly but surely moving his way through the field, showcasing some really good pace, albeit a fairly spread out top 3. From behind that, it's action all the way through.
Oh, it certainly is. Side by side down the front straight we've got Plesny and Police. They're continuing their run in towards the first corner, and it looks like it's going to be Plesny on the front of that battle as it stands. But Police in the background is trying to make that move around the outside, but it's going to be Plesny holding that one on and getting one position that he lost a little bit earlier, making that move. Ottaviani and Santo, I think we're having a bit of a move in towards turn 1, but not able to swap around that time around. Ottaviani still sitting in that 5th place with Janster not too far behind. So we're sort of in little groups of 2 or 3 around the track. Here's another one. Hoffman is now in that P11. He's up behind Klaver. He's bridged that gap, and Klaver maybe starting to see the gap ahead of him opening up too much. He's under pressure now with just a few laps to go.
Yeah, I have to say that Hoffman has done a really, really good job of closing that gap under the pressure, of course. And he has delivered the lap times needed to now give himself a chance in order to contain Klaver. Of course, he's got absolutely no support from drivers in front. He's got no buffer zone. It's him versus the 3-4 drivers behind him, all vying for that place. He has got a huge target on his back. And it's going to be, he's going to need some good evasive action, let's put it that way.
Definitely in towards turn 1 is going to be, of course, the massive braking zone, but you need to get the momentum, and has Hoffman got enough? It's not really a car that you can just sit behind and let the slipstream pull you along. You've got to do it in sort of the driving aspect in the corner. And that time around, Hoffman not close enough. But does Klaver feel the pressure? Is he going to be making every apex? You've seen the braking being very difficult. And he starts P10. Can he finish there? He's had a couple of drivers go past him, but he's somehow stayed there. And it's Hoffman actually who's dropped outside of that top 10 from the qualifying. That is what is going to be really, ruining some mistakes maybe on the first couple of laps. And let's see if he can get himself back inside that top 10. And Klaver is holding on this time around. But as the race gets closer, the pressure increases.
Yeah, the only lap that matters in this race is that last one. So Klaver, while he has held that 10th place for the last 15.5 minutes, if he doesn't hold them for the next 4.5, it means diddly squat in the grand scheme of things. Hoffman has only got 4.5 minutes to get that 10th place. Of course, for Hoffman, it's going to go by probably quite quickly. For Dylan Klaver, it's probably going to feel like 15 minutes as opposed to just the 4. And that is obviously just the beauty of relative time for Klaver. It's going to just drag on and drag on and drag on. He's going to feel like every lap is an eternity when he's having to defend essentially the future of this competition. Rides on, as it stands, half a second.
It's going to be a big one to hold on to that, and I love seeing this. I love seeing when a driver's under pressure and seeing, in the background though, that might change things a little bit. Side-by-side contact is made. That's going to be Benaez with an absolute send in towards turn one. We saw him do that quite a few laps ago, and this time actually might sort of lose himself a chance to get up inside the top 10.
Might well do. After all that hard work, Mourinho, of course, not able to capitalise on that small mistake, and that might also hamper him as well. But Hoffman overdriving the car ever so slightly off the exit of turn number 4. It's allowing Klaver just to bridge the gap a little bit, just have a little bit of breathing room. Small bit of a lock-up, though, from Klaver, it must be said. Also, look out for the cut tracks as well, because that is also a thing, still exists, and that chicane definitely will bite back towards this back end of the race. You'll be thinking you've got to be really, really careful, because it doesn't take much to tick over the incident limit.
It's too easy, some would say. Actually, you just made the smallest mistake, and that could be the end of your race. 3 minutes to go in the final race of the evening. It's the quarterfinals for the Sim Formula Europe 2024, powered by NextView. Gillison, Rodger easily qualified, of course, there, pulling away quite a lot. Van Erle also pulled away from Zlanta. Ottaviani inside your top 5, but it's the top 10 we're worrying about. Here's Hoffman. He's trying to do that, but he's sliding his way up to the back of Dylan Klaver.
Slowly but surely, let's take a look as to what happened to Angel Benegas going into turn number 1. A little bit late on the brakes. I think that was an accidental look, small bit of contact and a slight touch to the door panel of Hoffman, and also a very close run-in with Loic Mournier as well. Back to this fight though, because Klaver, the gap has closed between himself and Hoffman. We're on to the third to last lap, so after this it'll be the penultimate one, so time is running out.
Certainly is, and it's getting closer. Hoffman has got close enough, but he's locked up. That's going to lose him the momentum, and Benaez is going to be getting the run onto this back straight down towards the final corner. Is there going to be a swap of positions here? Who's going to be the one to challenge Klaver in the final couple of laps of this race? It's going to be very close between them, but Benaez wasn't able to use that momentum to his to good effect in towards that final corner. He does get close though. Can he continue that onto this front straightaway? We know he likes a dive in towards this turn 1. He's about 2 car lengths in behind, trying to get the run. As you mentioned, not a load of slipstream around here, so it's got to be all done on the acceleration, on the brakes. And what you do in the steering, a little bit of a look to the inside there, looking in the mirrors. Benaez keeps that racing line. That's going to be a good run. And to come onto the back straight, Klaver also braking a little bit early.
Yeah, just slightly cautious, I think, trying to minimise the mistakes, but not long left to go at all in this race. Benagas still has got a chance. We've got 4 drivers who all see that 10th place and see it as theirs. Only one of them is going to be able to be the one that takes that 10th place and gets themselves through to the semi-finals, but that is only half the job. They've then got to do it all over again, plus a little bit more in terms of finishing inside the top 7 of 30 cars at the Nürburgring, which is arguably a much tougher feat. So even if they do script themselves through, well, they're not exactly going to have an easy ride in a week's time.
And we're coming on to the final lap already, inside the final minute. Gillison massively up the road, 22 seconds away from these drivers that we're seeing. So he's already started the final lap. Tobias Hoffman there is, of course, trying to chase down Dylan Klaver. But there is Isaac Gillison. He obviously had pole position. He's ran away with it. Mrocek not able quite to keep up with him, 3 seconds behind, but still a strong race from him, and Rick Van Erle will be getting onto the podium. They should be unchallenged on this final lap, but the challenge is here. Dylan Klaver and Tobias Hoffman trying to battle their way in towards the top 10, and Angel Benaez also behind. Look, Mounier has a bit of a shout for it as well if these guys start battling too much and collecting themselves, but through turn 1 it looks like it's pretty safe and sound for now.
Each corner that's taken, though, is one less opportunity for Hoffman to attack, but it's also one less corner that Klaver has to defend for. He's done a great job for the last 20 minutes. All he's got to do is wrap things up here today. You can see the time at 6-0. This is the final lap. Isaac Gillison, understandably, will become our 3rd winner of the evening, but Hoffman, it is now or never.
It certainly is. In towards the chicane for the final time, effectively the penultimate corner on the lap, and that's a bit of a lock-up. Hoffman not able to get the run he would have wanted in towards the final braking zone of the lap. Isaac Gillison, of course, will be taking victory in this 3rd and final race of the evening. Mrocek will be 2nd place, and then Rick Van Erle. Here he is across the line. Isaac Gillison takes the victory, and he wins the 3rd race of the day. In towards the final corner, though, who's going to get the top 10 and the final place in towards the semi-final? Dylan Klaver has it at the moment, but he has enough fuel. He should take it, and he takes 10th position. Unfortunately, Tobias Hoffman drops outside of the top 10 over the course of the race, and will have to finish 11th place and be the first of the drivers to miss out on the semi-final. Amazing battles in behind with Meunier. So a bit of contact there. Meunier's not happy with the racing that they would have had to. Of course, Meunier himself dropping out after a bit of a spin. There is your winner, though, in the number 1 machine, carrying that number very nicely, with Mrocek going into the pit lane and Rick Van Earl rounding out your podium.
Also got a bit of a proud mum moment in the Sun Formula Europe YouTube chat. Daniel, of course, Dylan Klaver's mother, very proud that he was able to hang on all the way to the end for a P10 and through to the semis.
Well, he certainly did an amazing job there to hold on. That was a lot of pressure in those final couple of laps. Could have easily cracked, but fortunately for him, he was able to hold on. Here's your results, though, for the final quarterfinal of the Sim Formula Europe 2024. Isaac Gillison, Davin Mrocek inside your top 2, Rick Van Earl and Zlato Zlanto inside your top 4. Alessandro Ottaviani and Maciej Zata gets inside your top 6. Wojtek Pelesny and Yannick Police inside your top 8, and Gilles Neal and Dylan Klaver, of course, getting your final position inside the top 10. So of course those drivers will be seeing next weekend into the semi-final. Then we have Tobias Hoffmann, Angel Benes, Luc Meunier inside your top 13 with Bruno Gil, Tom Aldermeyer, and of course Jeroen Kudusuna inside your top 16. So this is going to be yes, an awesome fight next week in the semi-final, but we'll try and see if we can get Gillison to try and come to the commentary booth and get a bit of an interview, of course, with your winner Isaac, getting the win there, of course, from pole position as well. First of all, how was that qualifying? It's so close between all the drivers.
Yeah, definitely. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, not often I use TeamSpeak, but was good. Enjoyed that. Qualifying was, of course, really quite close, but that's to be expected in a competition like this on a track, Bahrain outer loop. It's basically got 6 real corners, like 3 real braking zones. But it went well. Just try to manage the track cuts were a big thing here, and the rear left tire, of course, and managed to get away with the win. So super happy, and then head down for next week now.
And I was thinking this, obviously coming in, you probably had quite good confidence that you could get inside the top 10. Were you already practicing for the Nürburgring next week? Were you trying to get a little bit of practice under your belt?
Yeah, I'm not that confident. No, not yet. Not yet. It's only a week away, so I do recognize that it is quite quick, and especially with this field of drivers, top 7 will be difficult. It's completely different track again, so I need to be looking at the setup. We're only able to change a couple of things in the car, but it will take a bit of time to just get the maximum out of it. So yeah, not much of a celebration after today. Just mostly head down for next week.
Absolutely. And do you think you have a good chance of getting inside the top 10, or do you think it's going to be a really big battle?
Yeah. So pace-wise, today looks very positive. But it can all change in next week. Nürburgring is a very different track. You need a very different setup, maybe driving style also. So I'm confident after today, but need to keep working hard with the team at Rodger to get all of us through to the top 7.
Yeah, absolutely. So congratulations on your win today, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome stuff. So that rounds out the 3 quarterfinals that we have seen here at the Bahrain Outer Loop. Is certainly an interesting track, and definitely some good fun to have this. Definitely a bit of a novelty. Next week, on the 21st of December, same time, 8 p.m. European, we go racing for the semi-finals. The top 10 of each of those races that you just saw go into a 30-driver semi-final. 1 race and 1 opportunity for them to get. And of course, Zach, it's your top 7. 7 out of 30. That is going to be a huge task.
Yeah, I mean, 10 out of 20, that in of itself is quite a difficult task to do. I mean, we saw that, especially in that final race. Then you get the victors of that, those that manage to sort of tackle the odds and get themselves into the top 10, who are some of the quickest drivers on our Factor 2. We have 30 of them. We've got to funnel them down to just 7, which is insane. It is going to be, as I said earlier, just a huge purge of essentially, the top flight esports drivers that won't be able to make it to that next stage of the competition. It's going to be an amazing 30-minute race, probably even more so than the 3 that we've seen here today. And the competition is going to be high, the tension is going to be high, and one small mistake could be the difference between you getting through and you walking away with nothing.
And of course, it's just 1 week's time as well, so not a lot of practice for these drivers. It's the top 7 that we'll be looking for. That'll guarantee themselves a place at Maastricht. And of course, that is going to be a very tricky one. This has been your quarterfinal for the Sim Formula Europe 2024. Of course, we want to thank our partners at NextView, as well as at Aztec, ActuRacer, Sim Department, D-Box, and of course, Interclassics as well for hosting the whole event that we'll be going to in just 1 month's time. But 7 drivers still remain to get their places alongside last year's champion of Damien Skovron, who'll be joining them. Let's see who that is going to be. We thank you for watching. It's been myself, Cameron Rodgers, Zach Sweeney alongside me, Ruben Correa Alves in the production booth as well. And until next week, where we'll find out the final drivers, it's a very warm goodbye.